Let's get it. This is Life's Essential Ingredients with Jeff and a Mike, where we hope to inform, inspire, and transform lives, one essential ingredient at a time. Welcome to the show. Oh yeah, here we go again, listeners. Thanks again for tuning in to another episode of Life's Essential Ingredients. Can't believe it. We're season 3, episode 3. We have Roy Osing coming from Vancouver, British Columbia, and where you can find him first off. And this is a treat, so I hope you're listening in right out of the gate, but bedifferentorbedead.com. And I'm going to say that again, bedifferentorbedead.com. Roy has an incredible website. He's been a blogger since 2009. And if you just hear that statement in itself, that tells you he's got skills because he's been doing it for a while. And then the cool thing with Roy, and I listened to him on another podcast to get ready for this, is he wants to hear from you. And he does respond to his emails, and he has incredible experience, which you'll see by the end of this episode. But his email is roy.osing, OSING, @gmail.com. So reach out to him. So a little bit about Roy. He's a former president, CMO, and entrepreneur with over 40 years of successful and unmatched executive leadership experience in virtually all aspects of business. He is a passionate blogger, which I spoke to, keen content marketer, dedicated teacher, and mentor to young professionals. Roy is also an accomplished business advisor using his own proven creative methods and practices. He is the author of the audacious book series, Be Different or Be Dead. Roy is devoted to inspiring leaders, entrepreneurs, and organizations to stand apart from this boring crowd and achieve their true potential. Roy, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Jeff. I'm grateful for you to have me here.
It's going to be a good one. It's going to be a good one. So we always start each episode. I do the research, and my Pasho listeners, he's traveling. We got to hang out this weekend, and so he's driving back to LA. So Pasho, we're missing you. But we always start with a thought of the day, and it's just a quote that I pick after researching you, Roy. And it's from the great Ralph Waldo Emerson. And it's a simple one, but deep and meaningful. Here it goes. Without ambition, one starts nothing. Without hard work, one finishes nothing. The prize will not be sent to you. You need to win it. Why would I pick that one, Roy, after spending some time getting to figure out who you are as a man and the work that you've done? And I could pick, I don't know how many millions of different quotes are out there, but that's the one I picked. Why would I pick that one for you?
Well, and thank you for thinking of me with that quote. My whole life has been one of execution. I'm a guy that was fortunate enough to be in a position where we were able to grow a relatively early stage company in the internet space into $1 billion in annual revenue. And we didn't do that without really bearing down on execution. So my leadership style is and always has been one of getting the plan just about right. Because it'll never be perfect, and the more time you spend trying to get it perfect means you're not executing and learning in the field. So it was always to get the plan right and then really bear down on execution. So the ambition part of it was we wanted to be the only ones that did what we did, and that was our approach to differentiation. I created an only statement around that, which we can talk about if you want. But the juice that made it work was the power of execution. And I was that guy. You know, I put the textbook aside and actually broke away from yesterday's relevance to develop my own breakaway stuff in a way that allowed me to execute pristinely by lighting fires in people and getting them to support the direction, add to the direction, improve the direction, and learn as we go. So I really believe that I can take a mediocre plan and breathe life into it by executing unbelievably. And I learned that, and I built my brand around it. I was the executioner, quote unquote. And so, yeah, that's a very apt quote. I do that in every aspect of my life, business, personal, with my grandkids. That's who I am. Get it done. Be different,
Uh,
be dead, get it done.
I love it. I love it. And you're probably not aware, but this show is part of a nonprofit called C4 Leaders. And we have this process called light the fuse. And so hearing you say light the fire, I love it. And we're grounded in those 4 C's. And so, yeah, I'm excited. And I'm always writing notes. Mike and I started this show to help, one person. Then hopefully that led to 2 or 3. But I take so many notes from each episode, and I'm always the person that I'm guessing is learning the most. And I know I'm excited for this one. But let's take a step back. So I love that you have the confidence, and obviously you've been doing something for 40 years. You've established yourself as a guru, so to say. But when did that start for you? Do you think you're like, hey, I have something here that I would love to be able to share with people? When did you first I got it?
Yeah, I don't think I ever had that. Yeah, I got it. Like, I'm the type of person that just keeps pushing and pushing and pushing, and in retrospect can appreciate any progress that we made. I mean, it's like leadership. We had this challenge that we had to get this company going and take advantage of the internet opportunities that were coming our way. We had no idea. I had no idea that it was going to end up at $1 billion. What I did know is the growth curve was kind of like exponential. And the way to get the opportunity was, as I said earlier, to light fires in people and getting them to believe and getting them to kind of like coalesce around the idea. So it was only in retrospect that we realized how powerful that was. We believed in the notion of breaking away from yesterday's relevance. Okay, because that's always been my drive. Get rid of yesterday's relevance and take on today's relevance. And there's too many people, and you know this, Jeff, that unfortunately hang on to yesterday's stuff. And you just can't do that. You don't have enough time. You don't have enough energy. There's not enough bandwidth to take on the challenges of tomorrow's relevance when you're hanging on to the past. So I learned that really, really young. So I was a breakaway guy. I mean, I broke away from everything. And this was a source of extreme pain for me as a leader, because it was viewed as too much change, too much change, too much change. I came out of a telecom background in the days that it was a monopoly, right at the time when that transformation into a competitive world was beginning to happen. And I concluded that we weren't ready. I mean, the essence of me driving towards be different in the early days was based on my conclusion that we were not ready to be a highly competitive firm unless we got rid of yesterday's relevance. And so that led me on the breakaway path where I literally overturned cultures. I had to create a new culture, I had to create new competencies, had to build new believabilities, had to believe build a new culture. And we just started on the road. And we realized the more we did this, the bigger the band of advocates we got, the bigger the band of fire, the bigger the band of believers. And they pushed us because they believed in it, right? It wasn't me. I was the kind of guy that was in the workplace loving frontline people, but they did it. And that was a sort of an achievement that took me to this execution thing. The whole power of performance and superlative performance is not based on the intellect. It's based on execution and getting people to do things that they believe in and day out, in spite of the odds. That's the secret sauce. And I got onto that really, really early. While others were pontificating and coming up with the most pristine plan in the world that never worked, I was passing them because I had an imperfect plan, but I was executing the hell out of it and having fun doing it. So that's kind of where I ended up. And as I say, painful along the way. That's where I learned pain was a strategic concept. I never realized it before, but it is, because if you can't endure pain, you're not going to achieve anything.
Yeah.
Elegance is not your friend, mate. It doesn't exist.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and God, you're saying so much. And unfortunately, I'm going back. Roy, I coach. I'm retired now, and I just run this nonprofit, and we use pizza now to help people make sense of life. And it's wood fired pizza, so really fun and helping people deal with their pain and experience pain and figure out what ingredients are essential in their life and which ones perhaps are no longer meaningful, irrelevant. And but I'm just struggling. I'm coaching a high school basketball team, and I don't think I've done a good job of getting the right kids on the bus, so to say. And I know you don't coach sports that I'm aware of, but you help inspire people. And I don't want to take all this time on the show, but I just keep listening of how you've done a great job of knowing who you are and then empowering the people that have been around there that you're building this team with to light the fire and go out and do something audacious. And I just feel like I've missed the boat this season with that. So yeah, I don't even know if I have a question for you on that, but I'm kind of talking out loud because you're like the guru. You're the guy that does that. And here I am working with, a high school girls team that you would think would be easy. They all signed up. I didn't have to twist any of their arms or anything like that, but we're just not in that space to go out and be different and to just be willing to fall on our face, pick each other up, dust each other off, and be like, hey, let's go. I feel like we're still at step one, and that's obviously all on me.
No, you got to realize that we've been taught certain things, but we haven't been taught to break away. We haven't been taught to be non-compliant. We haven't taught to go do a 180 towards to the sort of momentum that's been created. We've been taught as kids to comply, to conform, to follow the rules, to color inside the lines, to not be noticed, to not take risks. That's on the education system. That's not on you. Okay, so you're having to deal with that, and I had to deal with that as a leader. Was the inability for people to feel comfortable getting the heck out of that paradigm. I allowed them to do it. I forced them to make mistakes. But never make the same mistake twice. Make it the first time, learn from it. That tells me you thought about it. Never make it, twice, but make mistakes. I'm a firm believer that one of the key attributes of a successful performing organization is the organization that tries the most. And I used to have objectives in there for my managers in terms of how many tries did you make this month? Show me what you tried. Show me what you failed on. Show me what you learned. To create that culture of ease associated with taking on the unknown and meeting a challenge that you really can't define yet. And that's the other thing. I mean, kids have a hard time with that. So it's not on you. I think you have got the ability to make it easy for them to feel comfortable in discomfort. And that's your role. You got to make them feel comfortable in a very uncomfortable kind of environment. And all you can do is take baby steps. I haven't found any kind of silver bullets in this at all. It's a cultural change, but realize the inertia, that you're facing because of the way we've been taught is huge. But once you break that and they see it, and they see the absolute benefits of doing it and the joy, right, and from the empowerment, then you won't be able to stop them, which is a great problem to have.
Yeah, and I have that belief that we're going to get there. We have a game tonight, and hopefully we can keep taking a baby step like you're talking about. But I don't want to get in off topic on my team, but I appreciate your insight. This show is called Life's Essential Ingredients. So outside of your professional life and all that you're doing to help others, what is essential? I love the listeners, and we have listeners in 38 countries now, 550 or so cities. What are those ingredients for you, and how would you share perhaps one or two that maybe someone's, hey, I would like to have more balance or be a little bit more productive or be able to execute, on the personal side for yourself? What are those? How do you do that each day?
Well, the basis of who I am and what my brand is and what my life is be different. That's it. I mean, I've taken that. I was forced to do it to be successful in business, but believe so strongly in it, it's literally running through my veins. And so everything I touch, I have that imprint. Everything I do is with that in mind. I mean, whenever I've been confronted with a challenge, the first thing I think about is, how can I do this differently? How can I do this in a way that nobody else has done it? Now, there's an issue here, okay, that I want to make. This is not about Roy doing something different just for the sake of being different. That's not what this is about. This is about doing something different in a way people care about. So this is not an egotistical thing. In fact, it's quite the opposite. It's determining what someone cares about that you're interested in and satisfying that craving or what they covet in a way that nobody else does. That drive pervades every aspect of my life. I'm a grandfather. I have 4 grandkids. I am to be different papa. Okay. And I work that. I work that very, very diligently. I mean, my ancestry is Norwegian, and I created a club with my 4 grandkids many years ago called the Trollites Club, which is a spin on trolls, right? The good trolls, not the bad trolls of today, but these are the good trolls that ran through the mountains in Norway and did all sorts of cool things. Ugly as hell, but they're fun, right? So we had this club. I was a president, of course, because I was the oldest. My oldest grandkid was a vice president, and my other 2 were the plebes in the tribe. They always wanted to be president, but I wouldn't let them because they weren't old enough. We would meet on a regular basis in a self-made tent, right, out of a blanket at our house, and we would have a meeting, a Trollites Club meeting. And we just talked about nothing. We talked about stuff like, okay, Papa, which country we're going to go in and get now, and all that stuff that maybe some people today would find offensive in some ridiculous way. But we had a great time, and that was done deliberately. How can I capture the hearts and minds of my grandkids in a way that nobody else can do? So we still have the T-shirts, Jeff. I mean, they're a little tight around the waist, but we still have. So that's an example. Whenever I'm in a conversation that somebody has about the narrative of the day, you can always expect this kid will be stepping out, giving you a different perspective, honoring yours, but forcing you to the edge, to think about things a little bit differently, to challenge the narrative that's there, to challenge the perspective that seems to be popular, because I got no time for popularity either. That's a description of just a huge herd. What we want to do is get the hell out of the herd, right? So it's in my veins. That's my essential ingredient. It gets me into trouble because others aren't that way, right? People push back. People think, that sometimes I can be cantankerous and I can be offensive. Yes, that's true. I don't apologize for that. I can learn from it, but I can't change who I am, and I don't intend to. Because I haven't seen any evidence to the contrary that says there's a better way for me.
Yeah.
For me.
Yeah. I love it.
That's my essential ingredient.
I love it. I love it. And then I'm going to have you unpack that just a tiny little bit, and then we're going to move on. But so how do you bring that? I'm specifically, what I did as a professional, as a nurse for 29 years. And unfortunately, this past November, I had to go into early retirement. I have a pretty good size aortic root aneurysm. And so nursing is very physical, and you can't lift heavy patients anymore. But I think listening to you, obviously you have a few years to you. You look amazing, but so you must do a great job of taking care of yourself. And I want to be clear, this self-care that allows you to be different. So what are 1 or 2 things that you do that give you the energy? I can tell you're a high energy guy, and you light the fire and it's in your veins, but that comes with an expense, and so in order for you to be able to have that bandwidth, you're doing something on the back end that I would love the listeners to be able to get from you, of like, hey, here's 1 or 2 tips that are essential ingredients in my life that people don't see, but things that I do to allow myself to be put in a position to light the fire.
Yeah. So like, it's pretty, I mean, I think success is in life and in business and in careers is really quite simple when you break it down. Yes, you have to take care of yourself. So for me, I get lots of sleep. I have no problem sleeping. That's really important because you're right. I put out a lot of energy, and I find that the older I get, the longer it takes for me to recover after a session where I'm pouring a lot out. Okay. When I was 20, 25, hell, man, I could just knock this stuff off like you wouldn't believe it. Just give me more, give me more. A little different now. And so I have to be a little circumspect and take it a little easier. You have to do things like reading a lot. Like I read a lot, but I read boring stuff that most people wouldn't read. I read stuff that's controversial because I'm looking to find an angle of things. And why? For me, I have a very active mind, and I'm convinced you need to be active mentally. You need to be active mentally your whole life, and particularly as you get a bit older, you look around and you say, hey, man, I can out articulate that person because I've been at it longer. Okay. And that's really important because, there's one thing, to start to lose muscle tone. It's another thing to lose cognitive tone. And nobody talks about that, by the way. I just came up with that. That's a new expression. You better make a note of that and remind me that I said it because I may forget it, Jeff. So your cognitive tone is really, really important. And I probably spend more time on my cognition, right, than on my physical. Although I go to a gym, my wife and I, we believe we've toned down, etc., doing all of that stuff. I've never had a balanced life, though. When I was working as driving a company, my life wasn't balanced. It couldn't be balanced. And I know people talk about balance. And my view is I couldn't balance it. I'm either all in, or I'm not. And one of the big reasons I think that for my success personally is that idea. Now, fortunately, I had a wife and a relationship where she allowed me to do that. Not everybody does. And it hasn't paid the price on me physically. It has to a lot of people. And so I look at it is that my body needs that. That's who I am. In fact, I'm under more stress when I'm not doing anything, Jeff, to be honest. I mean, you could probably sense that. It's just part of it. So a lot of it is there's not a generic solution that applies to everybody in terms of preparing themselves and managing their life. Everybody's unique. So it's a matter of finding out what works for you, right? And don't take a prescription that works for somebody else. This is the be different thing, Jeff. Don't assume that what they're doing, you can copy and use it successfully for you. In fact, I am an absolute zealot on how repugnant the whole notion of benchmarking and copying is. There's way too much that stuff going on. It's like, Jack sees Jim doing something and says, wow, that sounds like a pretty cool lifestyle thing. I think I'll do that. No, that's not right. You take that as information and you process it and reach a conclusion that it either works for you or it doesn't. And if it does slightly, morph it, squeeze it, give it your own juice so that it will be yours and only yours, right? But the herd, man, the herd is live and well out there, and the herd is forcing narratives that are unhealthy for a lot of people. Push back. I'm a pusher backer. I'm a pusher from that point of view. I really am. I push back on that stuff. I won't have anything to do with it because for me, I need to live on the edge. That's just me.
I love it. I love it. And you mentioned secret sauce a little bit earlier, and that's just speaking to me. So I'm a children's book author for our nonprofit. We have this podcast. We do leadership team building events where we use pizza, and then our target audience is youth and families. And so it's so funny that you mentioned that because the next book that's coming out this spring, it's already written, is called Lucy's Secret Sauce. And Lucy was my second boxer, my dog. And it's a story of her just sharing her secret sauce. And so my question to you and for the listeners to take down is, how would let's use one of your grandkids. I don't know how old they are, but let's say they're a teenager. So we have the specific age group that we're trying to target. And I know this isn't your wheelhouse, but I can already tell that you just love on people, and it doesn't matter how old they are. You're going to do your thing. How would you, if you have one of your grandkids come to you and they're just a little bit lost, they don't know even what secret sauce means, they're just kind of struggling, don't really have their purpose and not doing too well in life, what would be a step or two that you would take for somebody that's coming to you to help them kind of find their secret sauce?
Yeah, so I've got 3 teenage grandkids and one in her 20s and who's going to university. And so they call me and they ask me my opinion and on various things. And it's quite an obligation that they're putting on me to answer, quite frankly, because I'm not one of these guys that believes in being prescriptive, because I don't have the right. I can give you ideas, and hopefully they'll turn your crank, light your fire, and you can do something with them because they work for me. But I don't have the right to be prescriptive. So when they come to me with a problem and a challenge or something, I will always give them a point of view. That's why they're asking me. They know I will. I will always give them a point of view, but quickly say to them that it is simply that. It's a point of view. Like, they need to develop their own particular position on issues of the day. Okay, like the amount of assessment and evaluation, okay, is a function of their maturity, etc. But the process of evaluation is something that I believe we need to start early. Okay, because that takes us to a place where we start to think about things ourselves. Try not be influenced by the narratives of the day, and it's getting exceedingly more difficult to do that. And so I have them asking me about pronouns. I probably know more about pronouns than anybody else my age out there, because I've had to learn them, right? So we have a conversation around, what do you think about pronouns, Papa? Blah, 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 blah. And that leads to something like my youngest granddaughter was saying, Papa, there was a guy in class today that identified himself as a skunk. What do you think about that? And the conversation goes from there. Well, it's so delightful, Jeff, that they would share that with me, knowing full well that I have a point of view on stuff like that, but use it as a way to have a conversation with me. I have my oldest at university who will call me because she takes gender study, and so she will call me and she will have gone through a chapter in gender studies, and she will talk about it, knowing full well that I got some views around. I always listen to that and say something like, well, that sounds pretty cool information. Okay, here's something you might want to consider, okay, to add to that body of knowledge. What I'm really doing, hopefully, is just giving them a different slant so they can think about that, not get caught up in the narrative. See, this goes back to my whole point earlier about we've been taught to do certain things. Okay, that's a trap. That's a trap. It's a trap that prevents flexibility and risk-taking and everything else later on. Okay, and so I'm one of these guys that I am constantly driven by my end game, always. And so the notion of getting caught in a narrative, getting caught in an educational slice that says if you can't formularize this, it's not worth doing, that I actually, probably sometimes push back, stay on the edge a little too long with that, just to make the point. But I'm in dialogue with these kids all the time. I will not be prescriptive. I'm there to help, and I'm there to help them help themselves avoid the precipices that they're going to fall into, okay, as they listen to the stuff around them, which has never been more cluttered, has never been more heterogeneous in terms of perspectives. It's hard for them to weave through it. And it's certainly much harder than when I was younger. But what I've learned is I've got a strength that allows me to take my knife and cut through that. So I've learned the coping skills. I've learned the ways to assess it and move through it in a way. I mean, that's what implementation is all about, right? It's all about knocking down barriers. That's what life is. So I try and get that perspective in front of them constantly.
Well, I love that. And one word summarizes in just listening to you and and taking notes on your technique for, in this case, helping your 4 grandchildren. And it's just empowerment. I think by you being a really good listener and occasionally tossing in a couple things for them to think about, and I love that word, not being prescriptive, you are empowering them to learn how to think and use perhaps a similar knife of just cutting through and getting right to the heart and the core of what truly matters, so then they can go on and take their step towards whatever that is for them. But let's get in. Let's change it up. Congrats on being an author. I know a lot of people would love to write a book, and you're obviously a mover and a shaker. And so I just want to say congrats on that. First of all, I know you have 7 of them that are out. So that's amazing. I have no idea which ones we should explore, and so I'll list them off here real quick, and then you can take it, and whatever one you think or ones would be helpful for the listeners, that'd be great. But a weekly calendar for leaders is one. Marketing in the storm. Execute first. Plan second. Be different. Be different. I might have messed that one up. 6 acts of leadership, and then your business survival guide. Did I get them right? I hope.
Yeah, and the latest one is Audacious, Unheard of Ways I Took a Startup to $1 billion. So that was the one that came out in May.
Okay.
And that's probably not that particular, my latest book is really an updated version of all of that. It covers every aspect of business, from marketing and sales to strategy to career development and so on. But it's interesting. I had a conversation with another host recently whose perspective was authors moving to a position of authority. And I guess I stopped on that. I stumbled on that because that's not who I am, right? I'm actually an achiever who became an author. And so I didn't start out to be an author whatsoever. I mean, the book, which is this baby, that book, my latest book, is nothing more than an updated handbook and handout for people who want to read about my stuff. And so fortunately, I can communicate at least well enough to get some stuff done. And I'm knowledgeable and experienced in terms of achieving results. So that connection leads me to be able to actually publish a book. People that publish books on ideas alone, I have some difficulties with, Jeff. You probably wouldn't surprise you to hear me say that. This is a practical how-to manual. So for example, if you're looking for different ways of doing planning, I had to create my own planning process that actually worked in the real world. If you're interested in doing marketing a different way, I actually did some of them. If you're looking how to build your customer service machine into something that creates memorable moments all the time, I've done that. If you're looking for a way to pump up your career, okay, there's stuff in there. So you can go to the various chapters and read what you'd like on there and hopefully get some takeaways that when you close the book, you can actually start to implement. So that's the latest one. I'm having fun with it. I really am. As I say, it's a handout. I'm trying to change the conversation out there, mate. That's all I'm trying to do. Whether I sell a few books or not, whatever. I want to change the conversation. I want people to start thinking about things differently. Too much inertia around yesterday and popular concepts and all this stuff. And it's hurting us. And I worry about us. I do. I worry.
And I love just listening to you. And I don't know if I should say this or not, but I'm going to say it. I see so many similarities. Obviously, you have more experience and more expertise, but in listening to some of the words you use, your thoughts, I just say, oh man, Roy just sounds like me, but a little bit maybe more polished and more business expertise to him. But I love what you're doing, and I love the practicality of it. Sounds like your last book of like, hey, if you're looking to do this, I've done it, and I want to give you the blueprint to allow you to light your fire and then go make it your own. not necessarily mine, but here's a couple of tips that I learned along the way. And I know earlier you mentioned the only statement. Let's get into that a little bit.
Yeah. So after having been around for a while and looking at the extent to which organizations have been able to define their special sauce, in the sense of what makes them different from their competition, my conclusion is that businesses generally do not do a good job of that. They didn't do it 14 years ago, and they're even less effective doing it now. And the reason for that is there's a use of what I call claptrap words like better and best and number one and market leader. They pervade most organizations' competitive claims. Okay. Well, to a customer, they're useless, because what's better and best to me is better and best to somebody else, etc. And they don't address and answer the question, why should I do business with you versus somebody else? Okay. That's the whole point of creating a competitive claim, is to be able to answer that question. So I had to create my own. And by the way, aspirations contaminate, Jeff. There are companies that say that their competitive advantage is that they're here to save the home planet. Now get real, okay? I mean, that may be an interesting statement to prescribe values within the organization around, but it sure as hell is not a competitive claim, okay? Just like saying somebody, we appreciate humanity or inspire humanity in the air and on the ground, is said by one U.S. air carrier. Ridiculous. That doesn't help me choose you over United, for example, or whoever, if United are still even working. So I faced this. I had to create my own. It's called the only statement. Goes like this: we're the only ones who. We're not better. We're not best. We're not number one. We're the only one that does what we do. It's binary. It either exists or it doesn't. Think about it as putting precision to your promise. And if you think about it that way, you're speaking to a prospective customer. You're not speaking to the world. You're not speaking to a PR agency. You're speaking to a prospective customer who says, Roy, why should I do business with you? And I say, you should do business with me because I'm the only coach and advisor who offers the only statement as a practical and proven tool to create a competitive advantage for organizations and individuals. That's why you should do business with me. It's not that I'm the best or better. I'm the only one. And you can go find out and prove it. Okay. Proof point for me is I got $1 billion in annual revenue. How much do you want in order to get proof? So the whole point of the only statement is to drive granularity, drive precision, and drive clarity. Okay. For the customers that you want to serve. And it's so powerful. It is so powerful. I do this with clients now, and they start out saying, Jeff, we're not special. Well, they are. We just have to figure out what it is, right? And so that's an extremely important part of my work. And man, has it ever resonated with people? It's like you can apply it to profits. You can apply it to not-for-profits. I sat on the board of the Heart and Stroke Foundation in BC, as well as the Cancer Foundation. I helped them create a competitive only statement. I got to tell you, at first, they didn't think that they were in a competitive business until I explained to them, yeah, donors have choices. Where do you want them to give the money? Yeah, they still didn't appreciate the narrative around that. But we finally got to a point where we created that sort of reasonable view that says we have to give people who have $10 in their hands the reason why they should give it to us as opposed to anybody else, because that's what they're thinking. They're thinking why. The only statement is the answer to the why. And man, it's been exciting to watch. I get emails regularly saying, hey, Roy, I just drafted my only statement. What do you think? Super. I just engage all the time around my stuff.
I love it. Well, you're going to be getting one from Jeff at c4leaders.org.
Good.
Because, I just am taking all these notes, and it's just like, I need some clarity. And I love how you use the word precision. That's just definitely what my nonprofit needs right now. But let's get into another P word that you brought up. and the importance of pain. Where does that come in with helping people learn how to be precise, learn how to gain clarity, or just in general?
Well, like I say, in order to make meaningful progress in a be different world, right? You need to be able to absorb lots of pain. And that's because there's so much inertia to change out there. So if you want to push your agenda to be different on any given topic or item, expect that 99% of the people out there won't like what you're doing. And yet you have to find a way through all of that if you believe. Now, here's where we run into people who says, you know what? I just can't do it. It's too painful. That's fine. Don't go on the journey. You can't do this unless you've got a high pain tolerance. You just can't. Okay, because it's like pushing rope. Okay, uphill. It's at times, and you know, one of the most challenging parts of my life has been simply that, to be able to take the pain, absorb it, and then throw it back in a highly energetic way to keep things going. And the other thing for me was people counted on me to have to be able to absorb the pain because they believed in the journey. And if I didn't have the pain to keep the journey going, I was going to let them down. So it wasn't about me. It was about them. And I keep saying, be different or be dead is about them. Finding a way to be more effective for them, not trying to make the light shine greater on us or me. It ain't about that. And so, yeah, you need to do a pain assessment. I mean, how much pain are you really willing to absorb? How strong of a body blow can you take before you bend over and decide it's the end of the day? Or are you saying, give it to me and I'm coming back? I'll be back at you, maybe a bit slower, but I'll be back. Watch me. I'll be back.
Love it. I love it. Just listening to you, I'm going to go nurse on you a little bit. I don't know why this is coming in my head as you're talking. I mean, pain, that's we help patients get through, but then the nursing process is this simple acronym ADPI: assess, diagnose, plan, implement. And here comes my question for you that I'm getting from what you're sharing is the importance of evaluation. You know, so if you're willing to sit there and go through the pain and go through those steps, how important is it to be able to evaluate your journey, to be able to continue? Okay, hey, this pain is good, and we're heading in the right direction. Or how do you help people on the flip side? Man, this hurts, and you know what? Maybe there's a different way that we can look at it because we're not hitting the mark. So I kind of getting a little bit diffuse with you here, but take whatever I'm. Okay, you're fine. Okay, here we go. What do you got?
That's fine. Look at plan A never works. It never works. Okay, because plan A is based on a bunch of assumptions. Okay, that you have in the evaluation process of anything. You always do your best. Okay, to get all those assumptions in, get them accounted for in the action you plan to take. The reality is, though, it's luck most of the time if they all pan out. What you need in everything, I don't care what profession you're in, is you always need to have a plan B. Okay, you have to assume that something's going to get screwed up in plan A. And that doesn't mean you're a bad person. It means you've accurately acknowledged that there are too many variables for you to consider that you'd have no control over. Why would you expect to be perfect in a world that is totally imperfect? It's impossible. You're being too hard on yourself. So you have a plan B that says, okay, if this, then that. The ability to react and recover is incredibly powerful. It's powerful in business. I mean, hell, in customer service, you have more people going, wow, I was so impressed with how you recovered from that service screw up. I don't even know what the main problem was. And you have that person for life. Okay, the power of recovery. It happens everywhere, in everything. People forget about the original cause and they go to the fact that you, okay, recovered so well, so miraculously, so brilliantly that you saved the day. They forget what happened and they just love you for it. And they tell millions of other people of how tremendous you were. So I say to you, Evaluation is important. Put as much due diligence as you can into it, but please don't ever expect you're going to nail it all. It's impossible. And you just, plus, when you believe that, okay, you're laying yourself open, you're invulnerable, or you're vulnerable to those stochastic events that are going to hit you tomorrow that you never considered today because the events weren't even in the realm of possibility today. But here you are tomorrow and they're happening to you. What are you going to do? So plan, respond. That's why I wrote the book called Execute First, Plan Second. It's all based on the premise that says you can plan all you want, but the reality is execution, recovery is all the same thing, is where it's at. That drives performance. That drives excellence. That drives be different or be dead.
Love it. Want to get into back to your knife kind of concept, and then just in the world that we live in. And for any listener that is like, man, Roy's given me so much great knowledge, but I'm still struggling with dealing with so much noise, just so many things coming at me. How would you guide a listener just to be able to try and just cut through, or some things that you do for yourself, or just to cut down the noise and get to the heart, using your knife again, so to say?
Look, we all need a very specific, I call it strategic game plan that you can apply in business, in careers, and in life. And all that is it's a tool that I created built around execution. So what it does is say, where specifically do you want to be 24 months from now? Like, I'm not a believer in 5-year plans because the 4th year never shows up. They're absolutely useless unless you want it from a banker, and then I can give you an extrapolation version that they'll accept, blah, blah, blah. But in terms of informing execution, what do I do today when I'm looking at my toes? They're not very helpful. You need a 24 months, very specific target. For example, in a career sense, it's the difference between, well, I'd really like a job in marketing versus I intend to be the marketing director of Coca-Cola 24 months from now. It's really specific. Now, the reason it's important to have that specificity is it gets you focused. And people that get screwed up in clutter aren't focused, Jeff. That's why. And so if you can get, your laser beam specifically on that end game point, and then now the only question is, what do I have to do to move inch by inch towards there? All of a sudden, there's a bunch of stuff going on around you that you're not hearing. It's the noise that you can cut out because you are so focused. And most people aren't focused. They're influenced by the narrative about this, the narrative about that, the narrative about that. If you want to be the marketing director in 24 months, okay, you need to have an action plan that says, I'm going to do this by then to get there. You don't have time to listen to a bunch of nonsensical narratives out there on sociology, okay? Unless, of course, you want it as a cure for insomnia. I'm sorry I said that. I just couldn't resist.
Oh, man.
I couldn't resist.
I love it.
But yeah, it's focus. Focus. And don't just say it lightly. I want to hear you because you got a knife in your hand. Yeah. I want to hear you say focus. Like, say it like you mean it.
Hey, I'm fired up. You got me, coach. I'm ready. I'm focused. And it's taken me into, there's a lot of similarities. In listening to you, I hear accountability kind of for yourself by being specific with what you're doing. For C4 leaders, we created this process. Again, I mentioned it before, light the fuse, but I didn't get in the process. And light the fuse is, I don't know if I would say a goal setting, but it's more of just being specific with what you want to do. So the first step to it is define it, and really being clear with that. Okay, then the second step is measure that. How am I going to measure what is it that I want to do? The third step is the accountability piece, is to teach it to somebody. Hey, here's what I want to do. Here's the action that I'm going to take to do it. And then now, Roy, you're my accountability partner because I'm telling you, this is what I'm doing. And when you put stuff out to the world too, or to a friend, it's hey, boom, hey, Roy's counting on me to be able to be a man of my word. And then the fourth step is to have your plan B, C, or D. And that's the if then. And then I know you mentioned that before. Well, if this happens, then that. And I think if people can give themselves a little bit of grace, but being specific with, hey, here's the actions that I'm taking, and I have my plan B. Let me go out, and my fuse is lit. And then once that lit, it's go time. And they're going to have the focus. They have this accountability piece because now, hopefully, if I do a good job letting you know what I'm trying to do, you check in with me. Hey, Jeff, how's your LTF going? Light the fuse going. And then all you do is light my fuse, and then I'm lighting yours because it goes back to the empowerment piece of what you were doing with your grandkids, just by kind of asking them, so to say, questions to allow them to develop the greatness that they have inside. So love everything that you're sharing with me and the listeners. And a whole random question that I think you're going to be able to take this and come up with something. But let's just talk about goosebumps, because you're getting me fired up. Why is it so important to get some goosebumps?
Well, yeah, thank you for that, for noticing that. That was one of my favorites. That was an example of a breakaway HR tactic that they all thought I was crazy to employ. And here's the background. See, we had a challenge to build a customer service organization with the goal of creating breathtaking moments for customers. And that was because breathtaking moments leads to loyalty. Loyalty leads to business, right? So the question became, how do I do that? Well, I learned really, really long time ago that the source of a brilliant customer service organization is being able to recruit the right people, being able to recruit people that like Homo sapiens, that like other human beings. Because there's a lot of organizations that have people in customer service positions that hate people. They just find themselves there. You can see them, right? They don't want to look at you. They don't want to, anyways, they don't like them. And so what they do is they put in place a huge training program for all these misfits and try to train them to like people. The reality is you cannot train people to like people, right? They have to have it in their DNA. They have to have it running through their veins. They have to have empathy and caring as part of who they are. You can train them to grin, right? But you can't train them to love people, right? So my challenge was, okay, I'm going to try something. So what I would do, and by the way, as a president of the company, I participated in panel interviews of people that we hired into customer service. So if you're somebody coming in wanting a job in our organization, you were kind of intimidated when the president of the company was sitting across the table, right? And you have you're applying for a customer service representative position. I did it not to micromanage, but to demonstrate and imprint with my management team exactly how they should behave in these interviews and the questions that they should ask. My favorite question, I'm getting to the answer, so hang in there. My favorite question was, so, Jeff, do you like people? Now, the first thing you're going to do, coming from the president, is you're going to sit back a little bit and you're going to think, okay, I know that this is a trick question. I just don't know where this guy's going. So, of course, you would say, yeah, Roy, I do, right? And then the next question is, okay, I want you to tell me a story that would show me how much you love people. I get goosebumps just hearing myself say this. So one of two things is going to happen. You're going to either say, oh, well, I do love people and blah, 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 blah. And it's going to be a very superficial response, right? It's going to be the answer that somebody expects me to hear them say, but it's not going to be genuine. It's going to be really superficial. And I'll just kind of feel like a cold fish and say, nah. But there will be that person, Jeff, who will tell me with passion-ridden language exactly what they did. And it will be a passionate, emotional story of a situation that they were involved in where they cared for another human being. That story will be so rich, it will give me goosebumps. I hired that person and I taught them the job.
Yeah.
Because for me, I can teach you the job. What I can't teach you to do is love people. So that's the Goosebumps story.
I love it. What a great segue to wrap this baby up. It's been amazing. And before I get to my last question, I gotta get a quick little shout out to my good friend that I met while walking the Camino de Santiago, and it's Juan Felipe. What's up, baby? Appreciate how you're getting us going in Germany. For some reason, and I think it's all Juan Felipe who's got all of his friends out there. We're big in Germany, so thank you for that. So, Roy, back to you. Last question. And it's a great quote from John Alston. And I always end every episode this way. And I told you for 29 years, I worked as a nurse. And so I've been surrounded by death. I'm a volunteer now at UC Davis Medical Center in the NODA program, No One Dies Alone. And so I'll go sit with people that are ready to take their last breath. And John Alston has this quote: "The only thing you take with you when you're gone is what you leave behind." So, Roy, I want you to know at this point, hopefully it's another 15, 20, 25 years, you have continued to light the fire of so many people. You are surrounded by your grandkids and now great grandkids, and you're getting ready to take your last breath. And what is it you want to leave behind with the people that are still going to get to grace this earth?
My quote would be, "It's not enough to be better or great. You need to be the only one who does what you do. Try and be the only one." That's what I'd say. You need to be the only one. Find it. Please find it. Humanity, we all need it. That's what I would say.
And Roy, this is the truth. And this happens to me very often. I got goosebumps as you were saying that. Yeah, I wish I could show them to you. I won't pick it up on this camera, but oh man, I love it. So listeners, it's been an amazing episode. It's season 3, episode 3 with Roy Osing, who is in Vancouver. Best way to find him, go to his website. He's got his amazing books that are practical. And that's what I love too. It's not just information. It's great information that you're going to be able to implement, should you choose, into your life to be different. And so his website, Be Different or BeDead.com. Again, his blog is incredible. His email, he wants to hear from you, roy.osing@gmail.com. Roy, we thank you so much for being a guest on the show. Any closing comment you want to share?
No, my pleasure. I feel grateful that you trusted me enough to have me on, and I hope everybody enjoyed it. I hope they learned at least one thing, at least that worked for me. And so thank you. I really appreciate it.
Love it. Well, my Pasho usually gets us out, but we're out. Boom, baby. That just happened.